Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. I'm so bad at these intros, at least on the drum panel, but we have Britt Bowman, killer drummer, has played with Royal and the Serpent, and obviously Demi Lovato, killing it. So thanks for hanging out with me and Eric.
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked to do this.
Yeah, so we've known each other for a while. We've met a few times, but then we recently got together at a drum hang. So yeah, we networked and now we're here. This is good.
And now we're here. Yeah, I know. Glenn does that little hang every year. I missed the last couple, I think, but it's always fun to get together with other drummers and just hang.
Well, yeah, let's just hop into it. So as people know, this is the segment of the podcast where we just talk about random drum topics, whether they be polarizing or not, in no particular order. And I think I might have talked to you guys beforehand, but if you guys have any topics that you want to get off your chest, because Lord knows we all do, bring them up, whether casually or officially in the conversation. But what's the oldest piece of gear you currently own? And not oldest as in how old it is, but one you've had the longest.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it's not even drum related.
Okay.
It's my bass. It's a bass I got when I was I had to be 11 or something. And we started on guitar actually, and then I got a kit. Bass was really interesting to me because it kind of mixes the two. It's rhythmic and also melodic. And so it's kind of I've always loved playing bass. And so I remember being a kid and I was like, I really want a bass, And so my mom ended up finding one at a music store locally, and I remember getting it. It's so weird. I don't remember a ton. My memory's horrible, but I do remember getting that bass, and I still have it, and I use it on my videos. It's just a little shitty little Squire, but it it sounds great. It gets the job done for what I do, and so I've had that the longest, actually. I ended up kind of playing more guitar up until I moved to LA, really, because just living in Chicago where I grew up, I was in apartments, and so I was really, difficult to play drums, and I was younger, so I didn't have a lot of money to get my own lockout space and stuff, and so I was playing guitar mostly until I moved out to LA, and that's kind of when I really started to play drums more, which is kind of interesting because it's all I do now, but pretty heavy leaning on guitar for a while, so yeah.
Yeah, I play guitar, and I know, Eric, you're talented in everything you do as well, but it would be fun to join a band as just, Kabasa is one of Eric's strong suits. If you don't know, he's quite the player. But
Love that.
It would be fun to be in a band just to play guitar. But you know what's furry? You know what's furry? You know what worries me? I'm not worried about the actual guitar playing. I would be worried about how I stand, because as a drummer, you're like, I sit down, I'm
totally
good.
But what I actually that's the one thing about drums that sucks is you can't move around. I miss, because I played guitar, and that was the first band I joined. I was playing guitar, and so being able to move around and run and interact with people, and I love that aspect of performing, and so oh man, I miss being able to move around a little.
I'm always jealous of everyone running around the stage. It's not fair. We're stuck back there.
I couldn't disagree more. One less thing to worry about. I think I've said it on the pod before, but I think one of my least favorite things about performing is the walk from side stage to my drum set. When it's just Ben. I'll make eye contact with people and we'll vibe sometimes, but I'll just be that weird guy staring at people. I wish he was on the back of the stage somehow.
There is definitely a security blanket of being surrounded by drums. It's your shield,
Exactly. You guys just have confidence, and I don't. That's what the end of the thing is. Now, behind a plexiglass, that's not the shield I want. That's different.
Definitely not.
Unless they're the little circle ones that only cover the cymbals, like Clear Sound Baffles. Shout out to Eric Downs. Love that company. But the full ones, not on board.
It always just looks like a bunch of reflections of me. So I'm just staring
exactly.
at
it's so distracting.
Why is this happening?
And then there's the one step further or away is Lucy Ritter was talking about how when she was on tour with Jagged Little Pill, because her drums were so loud, she was literally in like another dressing room in the theater by herself, and they would feed her drums into the orchestra and then ultimately to the front of house. But she was literally, during this Broadway show, she was in like a room by herself, isolated. Well, Eric, what's your oldest piece of gear?
I would probably just say my drum set.
The Sunburst one behind you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that my parents decided to get me that drum kit for my 16th birthday. It was like, we can get you a really crappy car or like a pretty decent drum set. So I was like, I want the drums, please. And it worked out. This kit's been like all over the States with me, at least Canada, whatever. So it's, yeah.
Is it a piece of gear that you'll never, there's no price tag on it, basically?
I will never get rid of this kit.
Yeah, I would assume the same would be for your bass, Britt.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Yes, but
Times
you know
are
what's
tough. No one has gigs these days.
I was just thinking though, as I got rid of the first kit I ever got. Something about me is I'm like a major minimalist. Like the least amount of things that I need in my life, the better I feel. And so like, especially with drums though, they just take up so much space, and like the amount of money it costs to have a lockout space and then also a storage space. And it's just like, I love gear, but I'm not enough to have like 17,000 kits. So like I've got my kit that's in my studio here, and then I've got one kit at a storage space that I use for like touring and local gigs and stuff. And this one always stays set up in here just with mics and stuff. And then that's it. I just have my two kits. And I did sell the first kit I didn't sell it. I donated it actually. And it's like, I feel good about donating it because it's being used I donated to like School of Rock or something. So it's like, I feel good about it being used, and it was just sitting there and I was never playing it. And I'm like, I like less is more, and also to have it being used by someone, that is kind of full circle. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of it. But sometimes I'm like, man, it was the first kit I ever got. But
yeah, I'm not a sentimental guy for the most part, but my first drum set, I love my dad's, his current wife is awesome, but when they sold their house and moved, she did sell his drum set in a garage sale, which was like my first kit. And I was like, damn it, I wish you would have texted me.
Wow.
But so whatever. I love her, but damn it, Sue. Anyways, now I'm sad. Yeah, I'm trying to think what my oldest piece of gear is. There's a caveat. One of them, it like represents it. A 13x7 pork pie pig light, which was the orange acrylic one. And I got it at Guitar Center in high school. And then unfortunately on a tour 5 years ago, someone dropped it. They were stacking the drums too high and they dropped it. And it was in a soft shell case. And so it cracked. So they replaced it with an identical one. But the one that I had, it was aired. It had the pig light thing was upside down when like you have the snare bit. It was like this really unique one. So they replaced it and I still have it, but it's not really a drum anymore. And then the new one obviously isn't it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Well, this guitar behind me, I'll pull a Brit.
Nice.
And do a little
traitors.
thing.
Right?
Well, it's called Maha because it's a Yamaha. And I got it when I was 15, and I've written so many bad songs on it. But
my God.
It's my baby, and it's been when I moved down here, it was thrown in the back of my Mazda 3 because everything I own was in that, and I thought it was gonna break because I had to like wedge it in there, but it's still kicking. I'm 37, so what's that? 22 years? That's not 22 years. Yeah, 22 years later. 22 plus 15 is how old I am. That's insane. Now I'm sad again.
If you say it like that, it's not.
Sucks.
It's fine. 22 plus 15, then there's math involved, and it's
Exactly. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Smaller number. It's like 24.99.
exactly. Yeah.
I'm 36.99. I'm not 37.
Amazing.
This one's kind of a controversial topic, I guess. Well, I definitely have thoughts. The statement is signature sticks are a waste of time and just a cash grab for companies. I think they are. If you like a certain drummer and you want to get their sticks, are your hands the same as them?
Fair.
What works in that drummer's hands, even if you're playing the same music, you have the same style, you went to the same drum teacher, whatever, you're identical to them in so many ways, it's going to feel different. You still need to, I play sticks of people that I don't listen or enjoy their bands.
Interesting, yeah.
But just because in my hands, and I play different stuff than them. But it's like, it just feels good in my hands.
Yeah, I think looking at it from maybe like a flip standpoint, like if you really like a drummer Exactly like what you said. It's like I wouldn't go get a signature stick of X drummer because I like his drumming, but maybe because I like the stick itself and it's just a byproduct of the person that made it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think looking at it from like that flipped standpoint for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, for sure on paper, it's just the name that is selling the stick at the end of the day. It's not named after like the dimensions or like what it does. It's named for the artist. So like generally people are buying it because of the artist. But I do think that there's like a back end to that where it's kind of like what you're saying, where it's like this stick works well for me and it doesn't matter that it's so-and-so's signature stick.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally. Because it's like, you know, if I just went to a freaking Guitar Center and I was trying a million sticks and like, you know, X person's signature stick was the one that felt the best to me, you know, I would probably go with that stick whether or not I was a huge fan of their drumming. But that's kind of interesting, yeah. For me, whenever I think about signature sticks, it's like, it's for the artist themselves that's making it because that's what feels comfortable to them. Whereas I guess something like a cymbal would be a little different because sonically, you know, maybe you can get more use out of it. But something like a stick is a very personal, like, you know, it's like what we're freaking translating from our body to the actual kit. So that's interesting. I've never thought about that.
I will say, though, you bring up a great point there, though, where if like sound of the cymbals and stuff, where I guess that would... Brian Blade, great example. I'm pretty sure he plays a maple stick, which is lighter. And so that's a really specific way for him to get that sound. So I can see maybe like it might not feel the same in your hands, but maybe you will get a similar sound that you like about them.
I also think it's probably a really cool R&D thing for like drumstick companies to just have artists create something that they probably wouldn't have thought of on their own.
Totally.
It's like, oh, what if we did
sure,
like a
yeah.
5A with like a beaded tip and a little bit longer and then they just stamped someone's name on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just interesting, like you know, I already feel like there's like a million drumsticks out there. You know what I mean? It's like how much, but I guess the minor differences, if you're really paying attention to those fine details, make a difference. So
trying to explain drumsticks to non-drummers, can't you feel this one's a little forward weighted, but this one, if you like back up like 2 inches, you know how crazy that is? And like the cymbals, they're like, what? It's all just like the same color red to them. It's crazy how nuanced it is.
I remember spending a year trying to convince myself that 5Bs were my stick of choice just because I could get them in like a pack for cheaper.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then I went back to my normal one, which I love, the Extreme 55As from Vic Firth. That's like the perfect stick for me. They're a little bit thinner than a 5B and a little bit longer than like a 5A. But like I was trying so hard to convince myself that 5Bs were like the same. And then when I went back, I was like, oh, yeah, no, it's not. It's not the same. It's just not.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. It's great. You know, I should like just experiment with a ton more sticks, but I've kind of just like I'm a Vader artist and either recording 5As or Los Angeles 5As. Yeah, they're just, you know what I mean? It's kind of like if it's not broken, why fix it? But it would be interesting to kind of experiment with different sticks, I guess.
Yeah, I have ADD or ADHD, so to my own detriment, I don't think I'm ever happy with my setup, like the heights of cymbals or how high I am on the kit or
You
how
and me both, yeah.
natural my spring tension is on the it changes weekly. And so because of that, so does what feels good in my hand. So I've collected so many sticks, not on purpose.
Yeah.
And right now, I think that I was talking to Mike Robinson and Neil Daniels about this at NAMM, that Neil turned me on to the Vic Firth Rock. It's a little thicker than a 5B, I want to say, and maybe a little bit longer. So I don't know the difference between that and an X55B, but the Rock feels good, and it's heavier than I'm used to. And I realized that I could actually play softer with more control with a heavier stick. You can play softer because the stick does most of the volume.
Does most of the work. That's so, I've totally found that too. And when you're playing lighter, it's like there's less of the gravity doing the work and you're having to overcompensate. And
yes.
Very interesting. I've noticed that. Yeah, for sure. I should just experiment playing heavier sticks for that reason. But, you know, then there's the whole thing of like, it feels, you get slightly more fatigued if you're like, you know, doing a crazy set for a long time or whatever. But I guess, and you know, so then it kind of goes to, like you said, just depending on the genre and like the set and the vibe of the set, you know, kind of determines what sticks you can use. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys switch sticks based on what type of music you're playing.
Oh, yes. Well, with cannons, and I think we've talked about it, but I play mesh heads with cannons. So the Harvey Mason Vic Firth sticks have a nice weight to them, but they're also light enough because I don't want to mess up my mesh heads. Although I actually think mesh heads last longer than regular heads, so maybe I'm being counterintuitive. But I try and be a little softer with that band. So yeah, the Harvey Mason Vic Firths are cool. But yeah, right now with Eve 6, I'm playing the Vic Firth Danny Carey sticks, which have that little groove in them.
That taper, it's nice.
Yeah, I pretty much stick between the recording and Los Angeles 5As. Like that's kind of it's always just felt good in multiple settings. You know, of course, if I'm doing like, I started up this little rockabilly band that I'm doing. It's really, really fun. It's a really great just thing to do for fun. Like that's what I was noticing about this little band that I started is it's just so nice to do something outside of work where it's just for fun. It's like a great outlet. But with like the rockabilly stuff, I use a lot of like the glass sticks or like, you know, brushes and like just, that's like a whole different genre vibe, which is why I use different sticks for that, obviously. But yeah, mostly recording in Los Angeles 5As are pretty good for everything that I do. Yeah.
Well, I want to piggyback on something that you just said, which is that you do this project outside of work, which I'm assuming is meaning like the stuff that you do, you enjoy, but you also do for money and to have a career in drums. So how important to you is having that?
Well, like, I don't think I even realized how important it was until I started doing it because, you know, obviously
Yes.
anytime I'm able to play drums, I'm happy. Like, it's what I love doing. And like anytime, whether it's for work, meaning for income or for whatever, I'm having the best time. So it never really feels like work. But to have something that is completely no pressure, just for fun purely and nothing else is so refreshing for the soul. Like, it's just every time I leave our jams, it's just like, that was so much fun to just have no strings attached, nothing but just going and doing it for fun. And so I didn't really realize how important that was or how I was kind of missing that in my life until I started doing it.
That's cool. I didn't think, not that I didn't think, it's just like hearing you say that rockabilly is that outlet for you is interesting.
Well, originally, like she's an incredible singer and I met her at a random show that was in Orange County. And she originally was like, let's start up like an all female, like rock band. And I was like, that'd be so fun. And then we were looking for people and she ended up meeting this great rockabilly guitar player named Buzz Campbell. He plays for Lee Rocker and this guy named Eddie. He's a great upright bass player. And so she's like, what do you think of rockabilly? Like, I found these two guys and I'm like, I'm so down to do that. And so we just got together and started with like a couple covers. It's just so much fun to play. That's like such a fun genre to have be your outlet genre because it's just fun, you know? It's just like a good time. We've only gotten together a couple times because of our schedules and stuff, but yeah, we have our first like little show and at her 40th birthday party that's coming up. And so I'm excited to kind of actually go play these songs. But yeah, it's just so fun. Rockabilly is such a frickin' fun genre. And maybe it's because I've always loved it since I was a kid. Like growing up, there's this band called The Living End. I've always loved them. They're so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so great. And so I just kind of was like, stumbled upon that genre I remember it was like back in the MySpace days. I like came across it on someone's profile and I was like, what is this? And so I've always really loved that genre since I was younger. And so maybe kind of full circle now, just playing it for fun. It's such a great outlet. It's been great. Yeah.
I need to do a deep dive. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I already said it, but I think having those outlets are so important.
Oh my gosh.
You know, it's so easy to get jaded, and just every time you sit behind your instrument, you just think of how much you need to improve, or this thing is the reason I don't have money, or whatever. You need to have that thing that is purely reminds you, and that little nugget. And I've said it on a few podcasts promoting my book lately about how just you need to hold on to that for dear life.
Absolutely.
And treat it just as important as eating well, sleeping well, drinking enough water, having your outlet for your art. Well, let's move on. Eric, since you're an instructor, I think you might be able to come off running. Britt, do you teach as well?
I do occasionally. It's not like what I do the most, but sometimes.
Similar, yeah. All right, so this is just a statement and then a question. You're given 1 hour a week to practice. What specific exercises or routines would you prioritize to make the most progress?
Ooh.
And
jeez.
Eric, what if a student came in like, I want to work with you every week, but I literally, between the next time I see you, I'll have 1 hour to practice. What should I focus on?
Wow.
And also to get a discount because we're friends.
I got you. Yeah. I would say I always tell people there's work practice and then there's fun practice. So it kind of echoes what we were just talking about. It's having your creative outlet to just like have fun and goof off and just explore sounds on the instrument. And then there's the stuff that is kind of I don't want to say miserable, but it's more focused and it's more intense. So generally what I tell people is to strike the proper work fun practice balance for you based on the day, based on where your life is. But if we're talking like, okay, I need to get down to like really just buckle in and just do the work, I would say to focus on the thing that makes you the most terrified. Like if you sat down and you were just like, this is the thing that I just dread working on, then that's probably what you should be working on.
Well, not that I disagree with you, but why?
Because generally in my experience, the things that we have the most fun playing, the reason we have fun playing them is because we already know it. We already know what we're doing. We feel confident. We feel comfortable. So generally speaking, the things that fill us with a little bit of dread, a little bit of discomfort, uneasiness are the things that we don't know yet. So whether that's like rudiments, for example, then that's what you should focus on. You know, if you're like, oh, I just hate sitting down and like drilling paradiddles, I just can't really get it's because you can't really get them yet, and that's fine, you know. So it depends on what that is from person to person. Also, not quite saying like I play in a heavy metal band and I really dread practicing jazz. I don't know that that's necessarily the answer, but
Interesting.
But just within your scope of what you do and what excites you, what's going to move your needle forward, finding those things within that fill you with a little bit of dread.
Well, we try and think of merch ideas throughout the show. So find your needle. I think
Find your needle.
That could.
Yeah.
I think that might be also appealing to different niches, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a very wide-ranging shirt. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I know the answer to that question. I mean, I always go back to fundamentals because you know the future dad in me. But I mean, those are always when I listen to myself playing drums. That's usually the part that makes me just like, God, work on your fucking singles, Ben. Yeah, I go back to, and I think John Riley's echoed it, where people have asked him a similar question, and he still just works on comping with the left hand with a ding, 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 because he's like, that's 80% of what I'm going back to me, not John. Like most of what I do is playing grooves and doing relatively simple, maybe intermediate fills, because that's what sells tickets. And at least in the genres that I've made my little cocoon in, those are things I can always improve on.
I love what you said, Eric, because it's just kind of like you're stuck in
Damn
your
it.
whatever's. And what you said too.
Yes.
Trust me.
It always does this.
No, but like
Eric won.
It just there's this drummer, Randy Cook. He's incredible, and he told me one time, like, if you're trying to work on something, you get frustrated and you just like quickly go and play like a fill that you're like comfortable doing. And I remember he told me once, it's like, it's because you like revert back to what your brain is like, I can do this though. You know what I mean? It's kind of the comfort thing. And so
Yes.
I find that like when I'm working on something and I kind of get frustrated, I'm like, I just instantly go into something that I'm used to playing and I don't even realize I'm doing it. And he pointed it out and I'm like, that's actually is such an interesting point, because it's like you want to know that you can do something. And so your brain just kind of goes back to the comfort. So I think the psychological, mental aspect of drumming too is something that I just think is so freaking interesting, because it plays such a big part in drumming. And I don't know how many people, I don't talk about it a lot, so I don't know how many, other people kind of agree or think that way, but the mental side of things is so huge, at least I find in my practicing and drumming and just the career in general. Like the mental side of things is pretty, I'd say almost just as important as everything else. Because if that's not there, then the other stuff might not even matter at the end of the day. So
Couldn't agree more.
Million.
Yeah.
If some people spent as much time on their mental health as they do on their paradiddles, they might get more gigs.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm such an advocate, man, for all of that. I just think it's so important because also if you're just like down in the dumps and you're just always, in a negative headspace, it doesn't matter how much you go into your studio and play. It's like that could affect everything else. And so I'm just such an advocate for like equaling out outside of the drumming with your mental health and self-talk and all of that stuff as I am with putting in the reps on my kit.
I'm happy we brought this up. I mean, there's been times where I've almost purposely wanted to take a week off of drums. Like even if I want to go play it today, but I'm going to literally be like, to come back with a different perspective. And it's not only about space and like music, like, know about a quarter note rest or here and there, but it's just space from your instrument, which I believe I'm actually echoing what Jason McGurr has been on the show, and he's talked about that. Just walk away sometimes.
Oh my gosh, and it's like you get in. At least I get in my head where I'm like, I need to be in there all the time and the blah 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 blah, and just be in there constantly and practicing and just pushing through. And it's like actually like sometimes it does more harm than good, and just walking away and coming back in 2 days, and you're like, how? I haven't even touched my kit, but I feel like I'm so much further along than I was. It's just really interesting how your mental side of things can play.
It kind of builds up your inspiration a little bit. You're just rejuvenated.
Yeah.
But I mean, have you guys had that actually where like you're trying to get something over like a weird rhythm and then you come back 2 days later and you're like, what? Was I like little elves were practicing my hands when I was sleeping or something?
Totally.
Like,
no, it's so fascinating. Like I'll just, 100% and come back and I'm like, how have I not touched my kit? But it's like maybe your brain just, it's the subconscious, like letting it kind of sit there and not overthinking it. I don't know. The brain is a very powerful thing. It's very interesting.
It's insane, yeah.
To go into the mental aspect of drumming, like I always talk about the paradiddle as like a perfect example. Because I think when you're at a certain point, it's like you sort of run out of physical barriers, and every kind of like blockage in your playing is usually like a mental thing. So like the paradiddle is always my go-to example where, okay, you're ripping fast on singles, you're blazing fast on doubles. All a paradiddle is it's just those two things.
Totally.
So physically you can do it, but the mental block is like, I just can't think about right, left, left fast enough.
100%. And it's just, that's also the whole muscle memory thing. Yeah, totally. It was just like, and oh man, doing things, because my brain, and I'm sure like you guys probably agree, it's like your brain knows what it needs to do. Like I'm like, I know what I need to do, but like I can't get there. And so doing things slowly and really like muscle memorying it into your brain, just where it's like you don't even have to think. Because that's the thing is like, you can't think right, left, like fast enough. And so you have to get to a point where it's muscle memory. And so, slowing things down too, because like Ben, you were saying you're really ADHD and stuff, and I'm the same way. I'm very like, well, my brain knows what I need to do, so like just do it. Like, why can't my body just like do it? It's like my brain is there, but like my body's not. But like slowing down and doing, especially in guitar, I found that where there's like a really complicated freaking, like riff I'm trying to do, and I'm like, I know what I need to be doing, but my brain just can't do it. And then you slow it down and put a metronome on and you just do the motion really slowly and you slowly bump it. And it's like, before you know it, it's like the thinking aspect's gone and it's just kind of doing. And so, but that also, like you said, it ties into the mental aspect, even like on stage on a big gig or something, and like taking out the thinking. Like when I was growing up, there's this band that I really liked, and one of the members' husbands was talking to me about like, one of the biggest things is like, don't think so much, like just take the thinking aspect out and just do. And it's like, that is something I think about a lot also. Because, going into like a crazy fill or like psyching yourself out or something, like there's this one kind of intricate part in a demi song, and it's like a weird rhythm where it's like you kind of have to think about what you're doing, and it's kind of like an unnatural thing that you wouldn't just sit down and play. And so I used to psych myself out before that part came up in songs, like, okay, the part's coming up. Like the part's coming up, you know what I mean? Like, okay, don't forget. Like, and then you end up fucking it up when you're thinking about it too much versus just like literally think about like I think about my cat or something, and it's like, oh, I'm just doing it. You know what I mean? It's so interesting how your brain can just totally derail you if you're thinking too much.
Yeah, derail's a good word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My brain has derailed me a time or 10.
A timer tag.
Yeah. Well, and it's so hard with so many different educators and drummers that have been on this podcast. So I was in the studio for 8 hours a day during college, and it sets this precedent for so many people that maybe that's not how their brain works. And I don't mean that with like they're smarter or whatever. I physically, I know with my attention span, I can't do an 8-hour practice. It would be a net negative, like you were saying, and I love Dave Elich, but he's also said sometimes 5 minutes is all you need, and maybe so for certain people. But I mean, you just have to know what works for you, and who cares what anyone else says.
Oh, 100%.
If you can focus
100%.
15 minutes of amazing focus in a few blocks is way better than just playing it for 3 hours and muscling through and being miserable and distracted and not paying attention to your hands with every stroke. It's just whatever works for you.
It's sort of like the 10,000 hours thing. Like I always get kind of caught up in that, and I don't know if I super buy into it, because it's like if someone spent 10,000 hours just playing the same AC/DC song, there's only X amount of growth. Where if you spent that 10,000 hours really like buckling down and being like, okay, every rudiment, all these jazz standards, and then like really kind of pulling from different places and pushing yourself, then that 10,000 hours has different value. It's usually not time spent. It's how much focus and how much work you're putting in within that time.
And how much passion you have for it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because it's like going to the gym. If you're just like kind of bullshitting through bicep curls and like swinging your whole body, but you're doing like a lot of them, it's like, well, you're going to be getting less out of it than if you were doing fewer reps, like really, really focused. And totally. And it's also like, what can you do consistently for a long time? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of comes into play with like eating healthy or eating clean or something. Like if I'm just eating completely clean 100% of the time, like there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But if I'm doing it 80% of the time, it's like I'm going to be able to maintain that over a long period. So, I also feel like that same thing with the ADHD brain. I've definitely got that, like coming in and just doing 30 minutes of focused practice that I could do every day versus hours that are just kind of not really focused practice every day it's just such a big difference.
I think even just leaving your phone in your car and letting it charge, maybe put it in the glove box or something so it's not stolen. I think that would help 99% of people have better practice.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh.
And I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And I also like have kind of found like putting on like, I love listening to true crime stuff, or like putting something like that on in the background. I've heard so many people be like, well, you just want nothing but a metronome. And I'm like, my brain is so ADD. Like if I just sat there for like 15 minutes feels like forever when you're just going right, left, left. Like it feels like forever. So just like whatever works for you, I don't feel like there's no wrong answer. If it's working for you and it's getting you further, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to practice.
I actively tell students to practice rudiments in front of the TV while, binging whatever Netflix show. It's a good timer for yourself.
Right, yeah.
Like that's
totally.
That's an hour of playing Paradiddles.
Exactly, totally. And it's better than just sitting there on the couch watching Netflix not doing it, so...
True,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's part of the muscle memory, too. And then you're, like, less focused on, to a degree, of course, you need to make sure you're doing, like, the proper whatever, but, like...
Yeah.
Not being so focused on it directly is kind of playing into that whole, like, just second nature thing.
Well, this is an interesting little question because I don't know the answer to this. So this is a statement, just so we can have something, a jumping off point, but whatever. So it's better to listen to one record for an entire week than to listen to one new album every day for a week.
Ooh, okay. I'm only gonna say
Eric's head almost exploded there.
No, I don't know.
Yes, because only because
to one record
for like a week, because I've found coming back to my ADHD brain, I tend to like find a song on an album that I like and just listen to the song, and then I jump to another song that I like from an album and just listen to, because part of the thing that like freaking technology has really screwed us on is like now it's so easy to just listen to one song or two songs from an album and then jump to something different. And so I'm realizing I've done that for so long, and so many albums are written to be listened to from front to back, and they're kind of all intertwined, and I feel like I'm less inspired when I'm jumping around. At least lately I've been noticing the more I just put on an album from front to back and kind of listen like kind of like they're supposed to be listened to, like not just in the car while I'm driving, not really paying attention, but like sitting down and just like really listening to an album and listening to all the things maybe I would have missed, like different instruments and things that are buried and like lyrics. I'm finding that I'm like getting more inspired when I'm listening to something from front to back and really sitting with it and digesting it than jumping around all over the place. Part of my ADHD brain, like I was saying, it's just like it doesn't process things when I'm jumping around all over the place. And so I think sitting with something for a while and really taking it in and focusing on it, it just digests better and you can appreciate it more, I think.
For sure.
That's so interesting. I feel like I'm the exact opposite. I'm like a super.
Yes, we finally got a show.
Yeah. Well, but it's funny because I'm such a diehard album guy. Like I'll listen to the same record for like a month.
Yeah.
But then my problem is I always feel like I spend too long on one thing and I've missed all these other things. So I actively wish that I could appreciate singles more. I want to like be able to jump around and hear new things.
Yeah. Pros and
cons. Do you feel you're missing out on, like, what do you feel you're missing out on by not exposing yourself to more music?
Well, sometimes I just like someone will tell me like, oh, have you heard the new so-and-so single? And I'll be like, no, I didn't even know they put out a new single. You know, so I'll be like late to the party and just kind of miss it entirely. And it's just hard to break out of a routine of like an album that I'm really enjoying.
But that makes you, I mean, that begs the question, do you think listening to more records makes you a more creative drummer? Like, is that what you're worried about? You're like, I should be able to listen to more so then I can bring more in? Or,
I mean,
is that counterintuitive?
This was kind of the thing that I struggled the most with the question, is because I don't know how to parse out like what is more valuable for my musician side of the brain and then what's just more valuable for just the music fan side of my brain, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the focus, the question is more so, as a musician, do you think it's more beneficial as a creative entity, someone who is asked for ideas and opinions on what sounds good?
I guess sorry, I just realized I jumped right in the middle of you. I'm sorry.
Please do. I literally forget about what I say halfway through it, so the life raft is always accepted.
But no, I was just going to say, I guess to kind of retroactively answer your question, I guess I'm more inspired by listening to full albums. Like I generally will appreciate the artistry behind like how someone made one cohesive piece of work than if I'm just listening to a single.
If you really deep dive, it's like, are you reading a book or are you reading it and taking notes and then having a book club where you talk about each chapter? Like, at what level are you digesting it? And I think you have more, my point is, I think it's more beneficial to focus on something and really be like, why are they doing this? I like this part. Why does it work? Is it because they're not stepping over the vocals, or do I like the tone of the hi-hat? Like, what is it about it? And I get into these little rabbit holes about it. But I'm also the kind of person to where if I like an intro of a song, and I'm not exaggerating, if it's a 20-minute drive home from where I'm at to my house,
repeat it.
I'll listen to the first 30 seconds 30, 40 times.
No, I get that.
Because I just love that. Like, oh my God, the production, the way it comes in. Yeah.
I
don't know,
that.
but I love that shit.
Yeah, I'm trying to get better, like I said earlier too, of just like being more focused on something, because I feel like when you're trying to do 40,000 things at the same time, you're only digesting all of it a little bit instead of 100% of one thing. And so I'm trying to be more present and focused, and like that ties all into the mental aspect of things too, of just like being more conscious of what I like and like what I like about something, like you were saying, instead of just being like, oh, that's cool, and just kind of like being like, I like that song, but like actually being like, why do I like it? And like really kind of honing in. These are really great questions. I like these.
Yeah, I just know that in the way I digest things, the way that things become part of my playing is if I become obsessive over them. Obviously, theoretically, it's like expose yourself to more music. If I listen to an Afro-Cuban vibe and then go to punk and then listen to a Cher album, like then theoretically I can like, when we're writing, I can be like, oh, I can pull from that, I can pull from pop, I can pull from metal. But I don't do that unless I am obsessed over something.
Yeah.
But my brain might be different than Eric's. And maybe you thrive off that you could just pull from like, you know, I don't know. Maybe you're a savant, okay?
No, not quite. I'm a huge Trent Reznor fan, and he was talking in an interview, kind of waxing poetical about the idea of people buying an album, a record back in the day, and just like maybe not liking it at first, but just forcing yourself to spend time with it because you spent $20 on this album. And then by the end of it, you have this whole new appreciation for it.
That's why I'm like, I always say like, there's so many benefits to being, you know, in the year that we're in now or whatever, or not actually, because this year's been a shit show, but I mean like the
I
new,
knew what you meant.
Yeah, thank you. The new way of things. But like, there's just something so magical that I wish I was born back in like, you know, of course, every era had its downfalls, but I just think there's something so cool and authentic and just real about how things used to be and like putting on an album and like, I did Drumeo last year, and one of the songs that they had me do was on an album that like, it's so funny. It's just like, everyone was like, how did you not know that song? And I was like thinking about it and I'm like, well, nowadays everything's like Spotify or Apple Music where you don't have to just sit there with a record and like listen from front to back or like drop the pin exactly. You know what I mean? It's like you can just pick and choose what you want to listen to within an album. And if you are addicted to like 4 different songs in that album, kind of like we were talking about, I never really would just put on an album from front to back. I would just kind of listen to the songs that I like. And there's something so cool about like what you're saying. Yeah, going out and buying a record and putting it on and just like listening. And it's just like, I don't feel like that's as prominent anymore. And I think there was something so magical and cool about really digesting something from front to back that is just not as common anymore. So to kind of circle back on your question, I think that's also why my answer was like listening to I want to listen to the same album, because I just feel like digesting a whole piece of work and as one is so magical. And this artist that I just actually tracked drums on her album, she kind of wrote, it's like a story from front to back. And I know not all albums are that way, but it's really cool like when you come across albums like that, because someone's writing it, you know, they're putting together this whole piece of work and it's supposed to go together. And so like really taking the whole story in from front to back is just so magical and special, I think.
Yeah, I've said it to everyone. I'm sure they're annoyed at me saying this, but I would say 90% of my instinct and whether I like it or not, that makes me into the drummer I am right now, was pretty developed, whether the skill was there or not, but like my creative entity was there prior to YouTube being around, when I had to buy records and I had to wait for my parents to either, you know, give me my allowance or just buy it for me. But so much of it happened during that time because I had the 6 records. Or before iPods were around and phones in 2007, I was living in Corvallis, Oregon, and between tours, I was a pizza delivery guy. And most of the radio stations that would come in were like college radio, and I didn't like that kind of music or just didn't want to listen to college radio. So I had 2 albums. It was Motion City Soundtrack, Even If It Kills Me, and then the second Amber Pacific record, which if people remember,
oh my
Amber
gosh,
Pacific.
That's crazy. Yes.
Yeah, shout out to Dango.
Yeah, it's crushing.
Yeah, but those records, so much of what I do, especially Even If It Kills Me, is because of those records are so who I am as a drummer.
I love that.
And whenever those records come on, I will stop what I'm doing. It's like if I see Face Off on any sort of movie, like if I'm scrolling on my hotel room, it's like, well, Face Off is going on now. I don't care. I will always choose it if it's an option.
It has a huge impact on your drumming.
Face Off has a huge... Well, I mean, I guess Nick Cage as a theory has a big influence on not taking myself too seriously on the drums, I guess. So
love that.
In a weird way, maybe, but...
You're the Nick Cage of drummers. I like it.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I don't believe you, but I appreciate that. All right. I think you and me, Eric, have maybe talked about like a lesson with someone, but this is worded a little more specifically. If you could sit down for an hour with one legendary drummer, living or dead, who would it be and what would you want to learn from them and why? And what's your social security number and what? No, okay.
I've been so into Keith Carlock lately.
Oh my God, me too.
Oh my God. Like I saw him for the first time last year at the Baked Potato. Never had seen him before. I literally was just like, what? I've never had, 2 times I ever remember being like, holy shit, having so much fun watching a drummer. It was Eloy at the Tama party at NAMM last year, and then Keith. You know, like the whole crazy chops and stuff is like obviously impressive, but for me, like the thing that I'm just so blown away by is like people with perfect pocket. And like Randy Cook's another drummer that's just like that. But you know, as drummers, like that's really our job, is to just have great pocket and great feel. And so, anyways, long story not short, that's my answer, Keith Carlock.
So I'm pretty sure I heard someone say that Keith Carlock plays in Steely Dan, which of course he does, but that he also plays in a Steely Dan tribute band, which is very meta.
Yeah, I just went and saw him play with a bunch of people that, they just did Steely Dan songs. And
there you go. So it is true.
Yeah, it's true. I just saw him. Yeah. Which,
That's incredible.
If he can do it, now we all have, now I can be in an Eve 6 tribute band.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, completely. Yeah, but man, and seeing him play with like in that setting was really cool, but there was just something about just the unhinged him at Baked Potato that was just so like, something about that venue too, obviously, you know, just like being right there and getting man, it's so fun. So, but yeah, what about your answers, guys?
I mean, what I said last time when we kind of talked about if we could take a lesson with someone, I just said Ringo.
I was going to say Ringo if it wasn't Keith. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because to me, we wouldn't even talk drums. Like, how do you hold your sticks? Or like, what about the festival snare drum from Help, which I would have liked to know. But I would bring in a bunch of songs that he did not play on. And that like, maybe I would have like done my homework and used the Moises app and take out the drums. I would have just been like songs that he didn't play on, bring him in and be like, all right, I want to see you spend 10 minutes coming up with a drum part for this song. I'm going to set the phone there. I just want to watch how do you start with the kick pattern? Do you start with, like, how does he's the songwriter's drummer. And I want to see how the sauce is made.
That's so good.
Hearing Beatles songs without Ringo on them is just like not the Beatles.
There's something to be said that if Ringo didn't exist, the three of us might not have careers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right. Yeah.
I'm just being honest. At least the careers we currently have, we wouldn't have that. I don't want some haters to be like, what, drums wouldn't exist? No, I just mean that the capacity I'm at. Anyways, Eric, go ahead.
Oh man, you guys had such good answers. I don't think I can top it. What am I supposed to say now?
Yeah.
You're sitting down with two legendary drummers right now. Your life's already perfect.
No, I think that I'm between two, and both for pretty much the same reason. It'd be probably Ash Sohn or Aaron Sterling. Just their ability to like.
It's not Josh.
It should be Josh. It should be Josh.
I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised for you. Josh Freese, by the way, Britt. He loves Josh.
Who
doesn't?
So do I. He's like one of my favorite drummers ever, just for so many reasons. But yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
That's my guy. No, I would clam up with Josh. It wouldn't be fun for me. I'd be like,
okay,
I don't know what to say. I can't. I'm always so fascinated by their ability to like choose the right textures and sounds, especially in like the recording environment. That stuff's just been incredibly fascinating to me recently about how you just like Aaron Sterling, for example, did like a thing. This was a long time ago where he just was filming his different bass drums in his studio, and he went, this one goes thump, and then this one is like doof, and then this one is like thwack, and I was like, this is great. Just the kind of like phonetic description of each kick drum, but just to have that knowledge of just like, how do I pull these different sounds and mic them this way and then play these incredible parts, and kind of similar to the Keith Carlock thing of, you know, the perfectly placed ghost notes and playing with so much intention. It's super inspirational.
I love that. That's a great answer. That was wonderful.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye.